a renewable resource, but the trick is that it takes longer than a human lifetime to renew. So in Western culture, where we don't really give a lot of thought to 3 generations down the line, right? We pretty much take ours and get ours, and that's kind of what capitalism is.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting question of what are our needs for timber in 50 years? Like, there's going to be a lot of technological changes. I don't ever see there not being a need for wood. I think that as human beings, we like making stuff out of wood.
Wood is dope.
We still build homes out of dope just because it's the most practical and affordable method. But like, I think we're always going to want a wood coffee table.
Mic check 1 2 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Think Space. Just getting my notes open here in this. Oh, what's this little notebook? Maybe available for purchase soon. Anyways, guys, today we got someone super fire on, part of the family here at Self Hired, Everett Bumstead, who's a director, filmmaker. He's one of us. If you clicked on this, it's because you're interested in tree planting, want to know more about what that is, that profession, what's the story behind this whole thing. The reason why we had Everett on is because this is an observation. This profession is an observation of life. It's a philosophical study of humans and the hero's journey, the human experience. This is a film. We talk about the film. We talk about tree planting. We talk about the methodology and emotions and the obsession with struggle that us humans have, what connects us and why. So a lot of big picture conversation here. Ev tells a couple stories. Really, really dope to have someone internal. And Ev does a lot of work with us at Self Hired. We love him. That's our guy. And we're so happy for him and the team as a whole to be producing in partnership with CBC and putting out an incredible documentary coming out. So this is a precursor to 1 Million Trees, which is coming out on CBC Gem on November 6th and CBC Television on November 7th. Self Hired production, directed by your own Everett Bumstead. You're going to see here a character you'll grow to love. So we talk about the human growth experience in a whole new way. I love it because it's not like other genres or things that are more played out. This is very authentic. You've never heard stories like this before, and I'm honored to have this conversation. Ev, thank you for coming out and making the time. And here's the pod. Let's go. When you talk about the film, like what's important for you to get across to your audience and to our audience? Like, what's important if you were to be like, I want them to know one thing or two things or just get one concept across? Like, what would that be?
I want people to think of it as the TreePlanters Journey.
Ooh, the TreePlanters Journey. So that's the destination right there. What is the TreePlanters Journey?
It's a little bit different for everybody, but there's, I think, milestones along the way that everybody hits. But for this movie, I think about, I compared it to the hero's journey, like the classic story structure, the Joseph Campbell. But in tree planting, it's the rainy day, the rain all day that everybody goes through and the growth that comes from that.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. Okay, we'll definitely get that across. Let's just fucking roll from there.
Fuck, I thought we were going. I was like, oh shit.
You're like, oh man, you're all tensed up and shit. Like, oh god. Oh god, the press run is starting. That's for crazy. No, but for real, Ev, can we talk about David Epp? So context here. So for people that don't know, there's this like unspoken world of tree planters that if you maybe like grow up on the island. How did you get into tree planting? Hold on, let's just take a step back. What was your introduction there?
I first heard about tree planting from a group of you'd call them gutter punk hippie kids on Commercial Drive, drinking caribous with their dog. I stopped and chatted, and they told me that they were supporting themselves from tree planting.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted nothing to do with that or these people, but I heard you could make $15,000 in 3 months, and that appealed to me.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
that's not bad. So I heard about tree planting because just like that was the thing to do. So like on Hornby in the summers, you would wait, serve, and then in the shoulder seasons and whatnot, you'd go away. And all the tree planters like would show up, and like so like June 1st we'd all be like hella hungry because we're broke, because the winter just happened and nothing's happening on the islands in the winter. So we're out of money, we're broke, we're like ready to go, we're like so psyched, and then they're coming back and they're like rolling in it, and they're just like, yeah, like I might serve like 2 days a week and to kind of just like bum around on the beach type thing. And so that was like my introduction to it. So like everyone that I knew that was a tree planter was kind of like this like alternative person that was a hustler, like someone that knew how to work, like truly knew how to work. But yet on the surface level, you'd be like, oh, that's a beach bum. You'd be like, oh, it's a surf bum or something like that. Like you just look at him and be like, ah, meh, that person over there type thing. But if you were to actually see them in any situation, any work situation, these people go. Like unlike any other profession, like a lot of times you see people and you're like, yeah, like they're working, but like they're not in it. They're not like, they don't have a high motor. Like they're in second gear. Like all the tree planters that I know, like whether it's watching you in filmmaking or something, or shooting music videos or whatever, it's like this motherfucker is in fourth, fifth, and he is going. Did you pick that up like on the block, or were you just like that from birth?
I think I've had a hardworking mentality in my life, but I think nothing can set you up for that as well as tree planting, as well as doing a job that's piece rate. I think that's the really key important. Piece rate is that you get paid based on the work you do. You get paid per tree. It's not hourly. It's not daily. If you show up for work and you just sit around, you don't get paid.
You don't get paid.
Yeah. So you make your own salary in that way.
Yeah, that'll motivate you to get going. So is there people, like how would you explain the tree planter's journey from your perspective? Like what was your story, and what were the associated like ups and downs and emotions that kind of took you through this whole thing enough to inspire you to, when you got this opportunity with CBC, to actually go tree planting? Like what was that? What's that whole backstory there?
Yeah, there's a hell of a journey there, because when I think of myself before tree planting, it's a totally different person. When I went into it, I was fresh after film school. I was kind of disillusioned with the film industry in Vancouver, and I was actually really questioning whether this is something that I wanted to do. So when I first went tree planting, I had it in my head that I didn't want to be like these punks and these hippies. I kind of had this idea that I was better than that or something.
You didn't embrace the hippiedom?
I didn't. My first year, I didn't go to a single party. I didn't want to socialize. I didn't want to make friends. I had this mentality that I'm going to show up, get my paycheck, and I'm going to leave, and I'm going to take that money and go to Europe. And I had this specific goal in mind, and I tried as hard as I could to not participate. But after I finished my first season, I had a year of reflections after that, and I realized that I met some like really impressive people. I made some really great friends, and there's a little bit something more to this.
Yeah.
And so I went back, and in my second year, I guess that was the start of like in my life kind of a wilding out.
What year are we at?
So my second year. So my first year,
like 20.
This is 2013 was my first year.
Oh shit! This was a minute ago.
And then I took a year off. I traveled in Europe with the money that I made.
Nice. Come
back completely broke.
Yep.
So all the more reason to do it again. But then I also had in mind that I missed out on something the first round.
Got it.
And then in the second year, that was a lot of people have like a university experience or music festival experience. That was like my wilding out years of experimenting.
Right.
And it was, the next couple of years, I was really in that world. Like I didn't have a cell phone for 3 years. I didn't have Instagram or Facebook. The only way you could reach me was by email.
Oh man.
I was in a whole different mindset.
That's hype.
And I was ready to pretty much give up on filmmaking. I had,
oh shit.
Yeah. To be honest, when I was planting, at the time it felt like I was going down almost like a dark path or something. I was like, am I getting further away from my goals? And so now it's crazy to look back on it and think that tree planting is actually what gave me probably my biggest opportunity with filmmaking so far.
Yeah, full circle.
Right.
That's super dope. So you did 2 seasons?
I did a third season after that.
Yeah.
Came back.
Why'd you come back the third time?
Oh man. I just started loving it. And I had a bunch of friends, and my cousin was planting, so I wanted to join her in her camp. And it was such a time, and when you leave, you don't think about how hard the job is. You think about the parties and the friends, and
Yeah.
it gets romanticized. So
Got it. Yeah. Like anytime you do something that's super hard, whether that's like a super hard job or like a hike or something, and when you're in it, you're like, this is horrible. And then you look back on it and you're like, that wasn't so bad. And it just like instantly gets reframed. It keeps on bringing you back. And it's this weird obsession that we live a life that's like so privileged and like so easy, like just blatantly easy. Like I don't care like if you make $20,000 a year, 50, 100, like dude, if you're living in Canada, your life's pretty fucking easy. Even if you're working nonstop, like that's a privilege to work nonstop. And I feel like there's this like, I don't know, like primal need to like actually go into a wretched situation, rain coming down, you're on the block, mud in your boots, blisters on your feet, you duct taping your whole legs at this point, and just be like in it. And I don't think that other professions give you that. But that's kind of like my theory on why people keep on going back, is there's this like primal attraction to it. But I'm curious to hear for you, like you've now gone through this documentary, you've talked to people that have planted like, I don't know, what's the smallest amount of trees that the people that you interviewed would have planted? Like, is it 1,000? Is it 10?
It would be, so we interviewed a couple of people after just one season, and they had planted between like 90 to 110,000 in their first season.
Up to
the person with the most was around 7 million.
So along that spectrum, that's fucking wild. Along 7 million. Okay. Got it.
It's impossible to fathom.
What does 7 million trees look like? Anyways, so like along that spectrum, what is the thing or the catalyst or the common narrative that you find these people keep coming back for? Because it can't be the money. I don't know. If you plant 7 million trees, maybe it is the money.
Money is a big play. I think it's interesting because making this documentary, I've really looked for a through line with all these people. Like, what is the commonality? And I consistently find my expectations defeated. Like you mentioned that every tree planter is really hardworking, and I would agree with that. But I know some lazy tree planters. Nice. So it's tough to call. There are a lot of things that you can kind of say are general commonalities. Maybe like masochism is kind of one of it, but like people who have a tolerance for pain and an interest in like working hard, people who have a love for the outdoors. But once you start like finding these commonalities, they end up being really vague because you get such a mix of people. You have everyone from like ex-oil rig workers to like environmental studies majors at UBC.
Right.
It's a big mixing pot when you actually get into the camps.
Yeah, it's so weird. I'm trying to put like in my head as I'm like preparing for this conversation, I'm like, what's the archetype? I'm like, who's that fucking person? And then I remember going back and when we did the rough cut, however long ago, and you had a bunch of tree planters there, and I think it was like a 2-hour rough cut. Mm-hmm. And there were so many interviews and stuff like that. And I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, man, there's not a single type of person that does this. Everyone does this. Like black, white, brown, whatever, young, old. Like there's the guys with the kids, the guys with the dog, the young girl like right out of university, the kids that haven't even gone to university yet. It's just like what the fuck is it that unites these people? Like, what's your conclusion? Because I know you said that you tried to find a through line. That was the word I was looking for earlier. It's a bar. What is the through line with these people? Because if there's anyone that knows, it's you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the fact that I struggle with it so hard says something. I think the through line is tree planting itself. It's the only thing that unites all these people is that they've all been through this like similarly muddy, nasty experience. Before they go planting, man, it's hard. It's hard to really find something like I say, hardworking. Nah, not all of them.
Yeah.
Like, love for the outdoors. No. Environmentalists. No. I've met people who like are straight up conspiracy theorists that believe climate change deniers that are tree planters.
That doesn't line up, man. But okay, yeah, sure. I
Right.
believe you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's the tree planting that's the only thing you can really.
Damn.
Yeah.
The only thing that unites them is that's like going to war.
Mm.
What's the commonality with the veterans? They went there.
Right. And that's a pretty apt comparison, actually. Like to start, often I'll see planters show up with army boots. It's a really useful boot for tree planting is these like high ankle leather boots. But there are days where, like a walk-in is a common thing with planting. That means you have to walk into the place where you're going to work. And sometimes you get like an 8K walk-in in the morning. So you gotta walk to work.
8K?
And that's through like, you don't know what it's through. It's through mud. It's straight through the bush. I've had to walk in straight through like dense bush.
And you don't get paid for that.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you get a little $100 on top at the end of the day.
Damn.
But I forgot where I was going with the walk-in.
I don't know. Veterans army boots.
Right. Is it when you're in that line walking in and you got like 20 people ahead and behind you and you're in your boots and you got your bags and your shovel, it feels like war. An environmentalist war, right? You're waging war against, I don't know. That's saying
Word.
Too much.
I'm into it. I'm most definitely into it. Listen, I'm an environmentalist. I guess you could call me that for sure. I'm a hippie, that's for sure. With that, like, you got 20 people in a line. They're all in their boots. You got sacks of things, of trees on your side. Like, is there an enemy? Like, when I think about tree planters, and I think the common conception is that they're going there because they're fighting deforestation. Is that true?
Yeah, you can't really put it as plainly as that, because the big thing that we talk about in the documentary is that in Canada, tree planting exists because of government mandates on the logging industry. So if you log, a certain percentage of what you log has to be replanted. And so this is like corporate liability. Like we exist on the fringes of logging cash, basically. Like it's still affordable to log and pay us to replant. So that's why we do it. And that's part of the high cost of timber as well. It's all incorporated into the cost of timber. So, the reality is that the trees that you're planting are meant to be cut down. They're planted on property owned by logging and paper companies, etc. And so it's a big key theme in the film, and it's something with a lot of nuances because, at least in Canada, we do put them back, right? In other countries, they don't have these legislations, and so you end up with these clear cutting, just devastating the environment. It's tricky.
Okay. So it's like in other countries, it's good that we do this, but it's like, hey, you're raping the environment once and then leaving it to regrow, as opposed to raping it once, regrowing it, raping it again. It's just kind of a cycle. I would rather the country that doesn't replant it and just moves on, and then it just like naturally grows back over hundreds of years. No? Like, do you feel like you're part of the cycle?
I think we are part of the cycle. I think that that's a fair criticism to make. Yeah. As a documentary filmmaker, I love that my job is to allow other people to speak for themselves. And so I hate to reiterate something that someone in the documentary says, but we talk about how what we're replanting isn't forests as nature intended or as it was in nature. We're replanting high yielding timber crops, and these trees have been grown in nurseries in a very manufactured way, often with the use of pesticides. Not always. There's a lot of nuances again with environmental policies and stuff like that, but essentially, although in Canada we plant mixed species, we don't just plant a straight forest of pine trees because we realized that monocrops are a bad thing. Kind of at most we're planting 3 or 4 species, which is so far from how it was before we intervened in nature at all. So
right.
I think, having an opinion on your questions out of my range, I don't exactly know.
listen, having an opinion in general for me is unearned because like I haven't planted a single tree in my fucking life. So like it's almost atrocious for me to even comment or have an opinion, but just from an outsider's point of view, right? The industry is crazy. And like with my background in finance and wealth management, it's like, especially as it pertains to sustainable wealth management and ethical wealth management, it's like, well, what's gray, what's black? Like there's no, yeah, so okay, great, you're replanting it. It's going to get milled down again. However, it's going to have a prosperous, I don't know, 30 years, 20 years. Does that count for something or does it not? You're employing local people to get out in nature, and you're holding forestry companies accountable for what they mow down. And so like on one side, it's like, well, this is just industrial bullshit. It's just gonna get mowed down again. On the other hand, it's like, well, there's a lot of positives to this. It's like, I'm not here to say like, oh, it's good or it's bad. I'm just here more to kind of like look at the whole thing from a distance and really just be like, huh, like what's going on here? With the advancement of like technology and stuff like that, is this always going to be a thing, or is this just like a period in time that we do this?
I think that's such an interesting question, and it's something I was asking as part of the documentary too.
Nice. We did not confer on that beforehand. This is good. This is good.
And my favorite response was from Josh Lichty, who's he plays a big role in the documentary, and this part actually was cut from it, so I don't mind.
Oh no! Shout out Josh.
He put it so well. He said we're a part. It's a renewable resource. But the trick is that it takes longer than a human lifetime to renew. So in Western culture, where we don't really give a lot of thought to 3 generations down the line, right? We pretty much take ours and get ours. And that's kind of what capitalism is. Yeah. So there's an interesting question of what are our needs for timber in 50 years? Like there's going to be a lot of technological changes. I don't ever see there not being a need for wood. I think that as human beings, we like making stuff out of wood.
Wood is dope.
We still build homes out of dope just because it's the most practical and affordable method. But like, I think we're always going to want a wood coffee table.
Yeah, like something about it.
Red cedar, oak. You know.
What is just so beautiful and elegant in the way that like metal or plastic could never be. So yeah, there's that. Is the demand always going to be there? I don't know. Is the way that we treat it, like in terms of it being a renewable energy, renewable source, or is it how we're navigating it with these tree planters? Is that always going to be a thing? There's just like so many moving parts to it that when I look at it, and that was one of the biggest questions, is just being like, man, how valid is this conversation? Because it's like, is this just one of those things that like happened for 50 years and then we like forgot about it? Or like we're creating, and then I was like, my answer, this is my self-dialogue. My answer to that is like, well, now you're creating a breed of humans that transcend it. Whereas it's like the trees almost don't matter, because the people that have planted 7 million or 1 million or 500,000 trees, that's a breed, that's a whole new archetype of person that we've never seen before. And they're creating a whole new subculture. And that's the shit that matters. Not to say trees don't matter, but it's just like the people that derive from the blocks are just like so incredible. And as an observer of this whole thing, seeing you and your natural evolution, whether it's as a filmmaker or whatever it is that you do with the rest of your life, that is the most interesting thing possible. Because it's like, what do these people do after they've had their time? They're 1 year, they're 2 years, they're 5 years. Is there like commonalities in that at all? Like, how do they grow? Do they grow in one direction, or do they grow everywhere?
That's a great question too. I think there are plenty of commonalities. One is the film industry in Vancouver.
Oh yeah?
You're going to find a lot of tree planters working here in film because you're working 18-hour days, right? In the film industry, you're working crazy hard, and there's not a lot of like criminal background checks. So a lot of the people who can't find other easy forms of employment actually end up in the film industry in Vancouver. But aside from that, there's definitely people who continue to work in the forestry industry. There's all kinds of outdoors geology type jobs.
Yeah.
But you'd be so surprised of the people who were once tree planters. We talked with a woman who was on track to take her bar exam to become a lawyer, who had planted 1 million trees.
That's right.
You can find people from all walks of life that do this thing.
That's gangster.
Yeah,
That's gangster. So like, all right, so like people don't understand, and maybe all the tree planters that are listening do. So sorry if this is redundant, but like for probably our audience, it's kind of like, okay, so like, what do these guys actually do? Like, what is the day? Like you guys go out there, do you get trucked in? Do you have to walk in? Do you fly in? Do you get boated in? Like, are you sleeping in tents? Like, how does this shit all work? Can you just like lay that out for anyone that's kind of like, okay, what do these guys do?
absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of variations in camps, whether you're in Ontario or on the coast on Vancouver Island, you're likely staying in a motel. This film was really about kind of Western Canada and BC and Alberta planting. And that's my experience. So I'll just speak on my experience.
Absolutely.
Which is living in a bush camp. So,
oh shit, it's real out here, son.
So I was you're living in a bush camp. You're a good, 100K at least from the nearest, rural gas station of a town.
You call it a bush camp.
Yeah. You're in the bush. You're on a logging road.
The army boot compares fire. Anyways, keep going. Yeah.
Exactly. So you wake up. I think, what is it? Dinner or breakfast is served at 6.
Yeah.
You're in the trucks at 7. And you're driving like F-150s, F-250s to the block. You're a group of like 5 or 6 people in a crew.
Yeah.
And my camps were around like 50 to 60 people, and each truck will drive to their own individual spot. But from camp, you're often driving between a half hour to an hour and a half to get to work, because you're in very remote areas. Once you're there, the day itself isn't crazy long. It's about an 8-9 hour day. Although there are days where you have to finish the trees in the truck, or you have to finish the land that you're working on because you can't come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that. But for the most part, it's pretty regulated. Like a lot of tree planters, a lot of the like old veterans will really be firm about, no, I'm done at 4:30. And if you're still if the crew's still planting at 4:30, the old guys will just
really,
they're like, nah, I've been doing this too long. And you come back home to camp, and you're fed so well, man. You get there's warm fresh baked bread and soup every day. You get a really great meal. Shout out to the camp cooks, because that's an insane job feeding these like ungrateful like people who've just been in the rain all day.
Dog,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you eat so well. There's dessert every day, and
that's sweet,
hot
man.
breakfast. It's great. And
So who were some of these characters that you interviewed? Like some of these old dogs, like David Epps.
David Epp.
Check my notes. Yep. What was your experience like talking to them, and when you approached them and you're like, hey, we're making a film on tree planting? Like, just what was that experience talking to those guys? Because I've had some chats with some old dogs in my day, and like these motherfuckers are weathered, son. Like they have stories on stories on stories. And I'm curious, with a profession like tree planting, not a summer job, a profession, what your experience was, talking to these guys that have had that, and if you can share any stories.
Absolutely. My answer to that would be intimidating.
Yeah.
I think like a big part of my agenda was that I know that as a tree planter, this culture is incredibly inclusive, and there's a very high, like, to make a film about tree planting, you really have to know it, and you really have to have lived it. And I know that everyone who's planted is going to be asking that question as the first thing. Yeah. And so me having planted, 3-4 seasons, I've planted a little under 500,000 trees.
That's legit.
And that's what any normal person would say. Right. But to me, I barely reach the qualifications of understanding what this game really is.
Really?
Which is okay, because I'm a documentary filmmaker, and my job is to get these people to speak on their own stuff.
Right.
So it gave me just enough information to understand that I needed like the legends. And so it was really important to me that we got in with some of these crews. Like there's some crews where they're tree planting companies that like, you can't even get their email because they're not trying to recruit workers. They're trying to just be themselves, their team of 15 people every single year. It's very small groups who like have a different standard. So
Damn.
So one of the people that we filmed with is Rainforest Reforestation, and they're based out of Vancouver. And you can't get their information like publicly.
This is hype. Okay, cool. Keep going. Yeah.
Every person on this crew has planted at least 2 or 3 million trees. Like this is a different level. They call them highballers. It's taken from logging, actually, is a term.
Sweet.
This is a different level of a highballer crew. Like these people, you cannot even apply for this job without a decade in, pretty much.
Really?
I made a joke to the supervisor that like he treats his crew so well and they've got such a good standard of working that he was going to get my resume next year. And he told me you're going to need about 6 more years.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, getting to those conversations with guys like David Epp, Eric Walsh is one, Tom Pauly, Alain Belanger. These are some of the heaviest hitters in the documentary. It's intimidating because I, first of all, have to gain their trust as a legit person.
Right.
And then these are like crusty tree planters, man. They're not really open.
They don't really give a good interview.
They have the stories, like you say. They've had the wildest experiences, but to be a stranger and to walk into their motel room and get these people to open up to it is a task of its own, for sure.
Wow. Okay, so as an interviewer, now I'm getting selfish with the questions. Like, how did you crack? Because that's a hard fucking shell to crack, dude. I didn't really understand, and now I'm kind of starting to get a little bit where it's just like, I could see after a decade of tree planting, and there's just like some young, I planted a couple seasons. I could see like the fuck you attitude start to come up a little bit. Be like, yeah, you're gonna try and tell our story, but you're gonna fuck it up anyways because you haven't been here for 2 decades. So like. And I'm just like projecting that hella, right? I don't know. But like, how did you crack that shell of that old, hardened dude or girl that like has those stories? How do you get to the gold?
I would say that at times I feel like I wish I had cracked that harder. I wish I had done better in that department. I think it's something I can improve at, but I think it was with my network that people that I'd met from my own personal experience, I used that weight, and by being professional and serious as a filmmaker and being very like clear about my intentions and my goals of what I was doing, I think I earned the trust of some like really key people who vouched for me. And that was it. I don't know if I could have done it on my own. I think I needed someone like Erin Bross is someone I'd love to throw up there, because she got me an interview with Dirk Brinkman, and she got me just like trusted, basically. Yeah.
Dude, it's so interesting hearing you say these names, because you say them in a way that like I would say like LeBron James.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're like Dirk Brinkman. You're like, it's like mic drop, like. And it's just a nuanced little thing where it's just like there's so much respect. Like that's what Birdman meant when he meant like put some fucking respect on my name type thing. It's like that's it. Where it's just like there's a weight to that name that other people can't really understand, but they can understand the weight, but they don't know everything behind it type thing, right? So you got the cosign is kind of what I'm hearing, right? Like you're like, hey, not some super like, yeah, I'm legit, but like some super legit people were like, hey.
You know what I missed though is that I did a season planting the coast.
Okay.
And the coast is like it's like the NHL or something of tree planting. It's kind of the big leagues. It's where the professionals go, is this like steep, crazy mountainous terrain where they plant 9 months of the year. They plant in February on the coast.
Okay. So it's hectic conditions and bad terrain?
And so let's say my worst day in Prince George, the land is so bad that they're going to pay me 17 cents per tree.
What do you usually get paid? I should have fucking started with that
question.
Yeah,
let's say in Alberta, maybe when you're in like a muddy, flat land field, and mud is easy, right? There's no rocks. You can just put your shovel in.
Oh, mud is easy. Got it.
It's flat. You don't have to climb any hills. You don't have to carry your trees up hills. So you're getting maybe like 10, 11, 12 cents a tree. Cross over to BC or Prince George, you're dealing with a bit more elevation. You got some rocks, you got whatever else to deal with. So the price goes up a bit. On the coast, the prices start around like 21, 22 cents and they go up to 35 cents or even more. So you are scaling mountains. Like you're taking a boat, like in some situations, you're taking a boat into work, a helicopter's picking you up off that boat. It's dropping you off with a pile of trees on top of a mountain, and it's your job to plant your way down the mountain. And then when you get to the bottom, that's your end of the day. Like
I need to go do a season, dude.
That's
this
the reality.
Sick. They call me Billy Goat Biggins, dog. That's what they call me.
I'm gonna call you that for now.
That sounds sick. I need to go do this for sure. Okay. So you go there, coast mountains are the coastal territory is super super tough. They don't just like let anyone go.
Yeah, typically you need like 3 or 4 years experience before you'll do it. I've heard stories of people like in their first year going to the coast, but it's always a disaster story of how bad it was.
Got it.
Yeah,
dude, it's so interesting for me to hear you talk about these things, because like tree planting is like, dude, this is a podcast. The podcast world is like growing so quick and so much, and we've been doing it for a couple years now and shit. It's dope, but all the people that come on are like relatively the same. Like they're athletes, they're business owners. Like you get similar narratives. Like they're talking about Instagram influencers. They're talking about scaling business. They're talking about self-development and shit like that. It's like, nah, dog, we're here talking about fucking tree planting. Like that's so gangster as like in comparison to everything else, because it's something that I feel has so much like inherent value. It's just a gem on its own, and yet it's not played out. Like it's undiscovered in a way. And being able to like, that's what's so dope about this 1 Million Trees documentary, is that you're taking something that's like left field and you're bringing into the mainstream with like, you're not doing this with Joe Schmo down the block. You're doing this with CBC. This is a real production. And you're bringing it into the mainstream. And I'm hoping that people can kind of like get a different perspective with all this and try to grow a little bit, because like I just said, I feel like so many topics are so played out. There's so much conversation going on, and everyone is just trying to feel connected with their audience. And yet no one really is, because no one's going out there and talking about outlandish shit or outlandish topics, right? Like I know you're doing a press run right now. Like you're about to go and hit other podcasts and stuff like that. Like I guarantee you're going to get a bunch of yeses just because people are going to be like, yo, tree planting? What? Or you're going to get a blatant no's. You're like, tree planting? What? Nah.
Yeah.
You're not showing your ass on Instagram? Get out of here. Right? And so what I'm getting at here is there's such a feeling of disconnect in the general public and the general market with shit that we're talking about. Like I just feel like we're in an echo chamber of the same things. And so having you come on here and have this level of authenticity is incredible. And the actual stories to back it is incredible. What I'm really curious about is what is it? Like I said, it's a gem. And what makes it a gem to me are the inherent qualities of struggle and connection. You guys are tough and you're connected. And like I just said, everyone wants to be super connected with their audience, connected with one each other. We're just looking for connection. We want fucking love. We just want love. We're humans. We want love. And it feels like when I see two tree planters see each other on the street, that's love. I don't even know if I've ever been in love, type thing. What is it that creates that level of like connection and love? Like how?
Pain is my answer.
Masochism
is that we've suffered the same things, and the tree planting experience is very universal. Whether you're in Ontario or BC or wherever you are, you're dealing with, what it's like to absolutely lose your mind because of mosquitoes and black flies. What it's like when your entire day is a shit show. You drive to work, your truck gets stuck in the mud, then someone else's truck gets stuck pulling that truck out of the mud, and you're just sitting in a ditch for 6 hours fighting off flies. Like we've all been through that, and we share that, and like we love it. I think the chaos, and I think there's a certain amount of planter talk. Like I use terms like highballer.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things like being like a cash slut is a term. It's like your cache is where you bag up your trees. Sled is a big term in tree planting. I hate to use that, but like sledding up the land is someone who's like who's just putting in bad trees all over the place, and it's never going to pass
what's
inspection.
a bad tree?
Oh, that's a big question, because it's it all depends on the specifications per contract, but essentially a good tree is planted in mineral soil. It's put deep enough that the root is not exposed, but the branches aren't buried either. It's closed tightly, but not too tightly. It's a very like Goldilocks kind of thing. Because you're trying to do this so quickly, you're trying to plant like 4,000 trees in a day. It's pretty hard to care for and love every tree like it's in your garden, right?
Yeah.
And so there's all these specifications that they put in place so that you don't do that.
Yeah.
So you do have to plant these trees properly, and there are people who are going to come check your trees afterwards. And if you don't do it right, you're going to have to go back and replant them and lose your day of wages. So, yeah, there are standards even out there in the bush.
In these camps, in these bush camps.
Yeah.
So that's called sledding up the land.
Yeah, shouldn't you? That's the bad introduction term to
Word,
tree
I
planting
like
talk.
this.
But
Nah, dude, there's people at home going, let's go. Yes, absolutely. Lay it all on the line. I love it. That's gangster shit, man. That's really, that's some other stuff. There's like this alternative, culture, lingo. What's the word? Jargon. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah,
Jargon. Within that, man, like, what is as we look at this whole documentary and we look at everything that you've done here, what are some of the, I don't want to say most intense, but like just most memorable stories as you're, whether it's interviewing or things that you've had to go through yourself with the team making the film, like what stuck out to you over the past, what has it been, a year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's been such a wild process, because trying to plan a documentary around tree planting is like organizing chaos. Every single, I'm pretty sure I can say this definitively, that every single shoot that I planned went way off of the plan, like as far as dates and timing and stuff like that. Yeah. We were trying to film pile burning, which is like, it's part of the forestry, like silviculture industry, where to prepare for tree planting in the off season, they burn the logging debris that's left over. We were trying to do that, which is dependent on the season and cloud coverage and all this stuff. And a lot of companies kind of were hesitant about letting us film it because it looks a little dark to see these big burning piles in the middle of the woods a lot, right?
Yeah.
I think we replanned this shoot probably like 15 times. Everything from like, popping a tire on a rental car 75K down a logging road.
Right.
So driving out on the craziest road on a donut,
Yeah. Wasn't it like heli issues or something? I remember like just looking at the chat sometimes and being like, yeah, the helicopter can't come in today or something like that.
Totally. Yeah. There were like, we would get delayed because of cloud coverage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We had a day where we were kind of set up with the heli for most of the day, but we ended up only getting a ride in the morning because they were like, yeah, the rest of the day's finished. It's just weather.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were only in BC filming this?
Yeah, that's right. The documentary itself has footage from Ontario and Alberta. And that's from some footage that I'd filmed over my own planting experience. I'd filmed in Alberta. And then we had some contributions from, Jonathan Scooter Clark. He's a bit of a legend in the planting industry.
There you go again with the
respect
name,
on
man.
that name.
Scooter?
He deserves it. Scooter. Yeah. Everyone in tree planting knows this guy.
Absolutely.
He contributed. I think he had 13 years of saved up footage that he sent me. It was over 1 terabyte of footage that I went through. Another guy, Calvin Van Aragon, is a awesome cinematographer who planted in Ontario and sent us some shots. We had a bunch of people sending us drone footage from Quebec and all kinds of stuff like that, because we were under a time limit. Tree planting, the main season goes from May until about the end of July. And our period of filming was from September until the end of April. So that was like an impossible hurdle right off the bat.
Yeah.
But I kind of just had the idea that this footage, the B-roll we needed was out there. We just needed to have these conversations with the right people.
Got it. Cool. How did you end up in Cuba? What was the Cuba story? You were like, right before we started filming, we were like, oh, did I ever tell you the Cuba story? I was like, Cuba?
Right.
Okay, what?
Yeah, so I was hired to come to Havana and film a couple rap videos for a rapper who
Oh, yeah.
I had known previously. I'd met him in France and I'd worked with him in France. I had done a video for him in Montreal as well. So this was someone that I had trusted. And
So this was not part of the documentary.
this is beforehand. This is last June.
Everett's a crazy motherfucker if you guys don't know. Anyways, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you talked to me last June, I think I would have said, I would have described it like this, that I was hired to come to Cuba for 2 weeks. I went, and the first week was probably the best trip of my life. I filmed rap videos in Havana. I like met all kinds of people. I was introduced to all these people and was able to like talk and hang out with them because I was with people who would like help me translate and stuff like that. I interviewed people on the streets in Havana. This was kind of the prerogative of the guy that I was with. And then as the second week began, things started deteriorating. There's a bit of a fallout and a communication breakdown between this guy who had hired me to be there so badly that I think it was my second or third last day there. He sat me down and he said, "This is how it's going to go. You're going to give me the footage and you're going to give me all my money back for everything I've paid for you, or else me and these guys are going to beat the shit out of you and sell your camera gear in the street."
Jesus.
So I had to go to an ATM and take out, I think at that point, it was just for my flight and for my accommodations up until then, not including any wages or anything. So it was like $1,000 US. I just took out of the ATM and I gave him, and I was in a real bad place because I knew a lot about this guy, and he came from a rough place, and he had done time. He had been in and out of prison in France, and he was a rough character. And I loved that because he was my guy. Like he was the person keeping me safe in Havana up until this point. But when he turned on me, I knew he was strapped. I knew that I was in a real bad place. And then with the money that I gave him, he immediately was splurging really hard on alcohol and prostitutes. No. And so every time I dealt with him after that day, when he confronted me, he was wasted drunk. So yeah, I got into a bit of a scary situation where he was demanding that I give him this footage. But if anybody knows anything about data or videos, I had shot over 120 gigs of footage, and he gave me a USB stick with 16 gigs of space on it and his cell phone with 8 gigs of space on it. And he said, "Put all the footage on here or else we're going to fuck you up."
And you're like, it doesn't work like that.
And I tried saying that, and then it had it wasn't getting across. And so I was in a hotel room transferring footage. And as I'm transferring footage, I'm like deleting all the big files so that when he does the cross reference, the two sides look the same. And so I'm like cutting down my footage down to like
nothing.
Yeah. Like 30% of what I shot somehow, and hoping that he doesn't go, "What about this day when we filmed over here? Where's that stuff?" So yeah, I pulled it off and got the hell out of Cuba with like no money, nothing. And yeah, I think if you talked to me back in June, I would have said, like I got robbed, and I would have really, I think back then I had a mentality that I was the victim. I had been wronged in this situation. And I think now when I look back on it, I reflect with the restlessness I had and the naivety I had that made me vulnerable. I think I'll never again travel to a place without making an attempt to learn a bit of the language, understanding where I'm staying, asking all the right questions. I think as a risk taker, as a bit of a masochist, as a young man who feels completely invulnerable, I thought nothing could go wrong, and I've learned a lot since then. So yeah, I think in a lot of ways I put myself into that place. Obviously I couldn't have predicted what happened, but
that's hectic, man.
Yeah.
So okay, all right, so when you get 16 gigs and then a cell phone, so I'm just like trying to like picture some big ass dude like giving you like, "Hey man, put it all here," on like some shitty phone, and And
he's not that big, but he's wiry and he knows how to fight.
All right.
And he had a gun.
Hey, he had a gun.
Doesn't matter how big he is.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, absolutely. So you deleted some stuff, made it look identical, and he was dumb enough to take it?
He was drunk enough to take it.
Drunk enough to take it. Got it. Cool. And then you immediately just get in a car and go to the airport and get the fuck out of there.
Pretty much. I arrived at my flight about 8 hours early. Yeah. I was like, I'm safe at the airport.
Yeah.
There's guards around. I can sit in here. And it's tricky, man, because in Havana, like he had a French passport and I had a Canadian passport. So if we're to talk to the police, there's no telling how they're going to perceive this, right? And at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but what my understanding of how things work in Havana is that it would come down to who's offering cops the bigger
who's got more cash
tip.
Yeah.
And at that time he had all my cash. So I wasn't winning that fight.
Yeah.
So I laid low and I just counted my blessings, man. And I was so happy to be back in Vancouver when I got home.
Okay, so like Evan and I are in a couple group chats together, right? And every once in a while, like some shit pops up, and I'm like, I'm hella bad on my phone and shit. And so I'll be like, and I talk to Cavi, he's like, yeah, I've gotten something in Havana, but like he's home now, it's okay. I'm like, all right, cool. And like with the OMT stuff, it was like, yeah, like they got it a rental car, but then they got it for this long, and then the tire popped, and then I'm just like, oh man, this shit sounds really, really hectic. And it's good to like sit down with you and be like, yeah, this shit actually was really, really hectic. Mm-hmm. So fast forward now, we're now in the later stages of 2020. You're now partnered with CBC. Self Hired is now partnered with CBC. You've directed this film. It's coming out. You're a far cry from being broke in Havana with a gun to your head, theoretically, or what's the fucking term? I don't know. What is that motherfucking term?
Metaphorically?
Metaphorically. Thank you. God damn, shit, late in the day.
I feel like theoretically works.
Yeah, theoretically.
Yeah.
I should have just got away with that. Anyways, you're a far cry from that. Now you're here. This documentary's coming out. What does your day-to-day look like now? Like, what are you doing now for people that are interested? Like, who's the guy filming, like, that's behind this whole thing? What does your day-to-day actually look like? Like, what projects are you working on? What's life about right now?
Yeah, the reality is trying to pay rent, man.
Still out here.
Yeah, just music videos is my primary thing that I love and I do the most. But all kinds of videos, all kinds of stuff, whatever Self Hired needs, whether that's photography or podcasts and stuff like that, just being there. And yeah, indie productions, man, and trying to get this out, sending emails and a lot of like getting lost in thought of dreaming of what could be right now. It's a weird limbo phase. I really feel unsettled having it not out.
Yeah.
I know it's there. The whole world knows it's coming, or like the whole community knows it's coming, but nobody knows what it actually looks like. And that'll be a big judgment day. It'll be interesting.
Huge.
Yeah.
Then you give it away, then it's the world's, man.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. So for any like filmmakers, then now that you've gone through this process, you know, with your experience, like, do you have any regrets or advice that you give them at this point? Like, now that you're standing at this point, looking back at these people that might be looking to go out and partner with a CBC or a Global or whoever the hell, like, do you have any like words of advice? Because I know they're listening right now. My advice, something I've learned that, as an indie production, $40,000 is like, it doesn't cover that much. Yeah.
When you're producing for a year and you have to legally vet something for television and you got a team of about 15 people
Trying to make a documentary.
Yeah. I think I've learned to just ask, man. Like, this whole process was just asking for favors and I felt so annoying. I think I bothered a bunch of people. I would send people, you know, if someone didn't reply to me, they'd get a, hey, just checking on that.
Hey,
next day, hey, just checking on that.
Just want to make sure they didn't get lost in your inbox. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a documentary filmmaker, your job is to ask for favors and annoy the hell out of people. And
Beautiful.
That's something I've learned.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a gem right there. That's a gem right there. Yeah, I think you're gonna. I think what this film's going to do is it's just going to give people more confidence in that they have like a place to belong and an identity to sit in, where it's like, I don't want to say like glorifying it, but in a way, like kind of glorifying it and being like, hey, like this is legit. There's a lot of stories here. Like, let's put some respect on this shit, you know, like, and having people really step up and be like, yeah, I am a tree planter, or I was a tree planter, and that's a huge part of my identity, right? And having the world at large kind of understand that, and partnering with the biggest production. What the fuck is CBC? CBC is our
public broadcasting network.
Our public broadcasting network in Canada, like coming together and putting that out. That's incredible. So it airs November
7th. It's November 6th on CBC Gem. So that's online, gem.cbc.ca.
Yeah.
And then it'll be November 7th at 8 p.m. on television in BC and Alberta.
I love it, man. So if people want to get in touch with you or want to learn more, where would you direct them?
I would say on Instagram.
Absolutely.
Whatever it
takes, son.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I love it. So what's next, man? Like, as you're still doing music videos, are you working on another film? Is there something in the pipeline? You got ideas? What do you want to work on? Like, what's inspiring you creatively right now?
A lot of things. Music videos. I've got. There's artists in the city I still want to work with. There's a few things like that, but the truth is something that I can't talk a lot about because it's so up in the air. There's been no real conversations or deals made or anything about this, but I have a great ambition to turn this into like a feature-length series. To me, when I watch this, I feel like it's a pilot episode, and there's so much that we didn't touch on that I want to have the opportunity to really do that deep dive.
That would be fire. Shout out Netflix. Shout out Amazon.
1 billion trees.
Hashtag 1 billion. What do you know about a billy?
Yeah.
Okay, dope, man. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it, man. And good luck on the rest of this tour, November 6th, November 7th. And get ready to do a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviewing, a lot of talking, my man.
Thank you, Josh.
And congratulations.
Cool. I appreciate you, man.
That's it. You?
Oh, I'm sweating.
Yo, you killed it. That's dope. Yo, thank you for checking that out. I really, really appreciate it. If you want one of these Think Space journals, make sure you holler at me. We're doing a pre-order right now. If you don't pre-order, you're not going to get it. That's kind of, we're just doing it for the family. We'll do maybe, 100 of them or something like that, just for like the core listeners, the guys that really rock with us, that we've had, developed core relationships with. And so we're really excited to put that out. Ev, thank you for coming on, my man. That was fire. And so excited for him to get in front of a mic and tell his story and tell that story. And if you have more questions about, tree planting or about working with Ev or working with Self Hired or whatever it may be, just slide in the DMs. You guys already know what it is. As always, I want to give a special shout out to our partner, not our sponsor, our partner, Nature of Work, who is fundamentally transformed how I work, how I operate, simply on the basis of giving me a new foundation to live my life. It's a 6-week program, rewiring your foundations around creativity, resiliency, your morning routine, your meditation practices, your creativity cycles, your natural rhythms. It's all inclusive, and I highly recommend it. So check that out. You can go to naturework.co. We'll put the link in the description as always, and you can use code, I believe it's ThinkSpace10. I don't know. We'll figure it out to get 10% off your Nature Work program, guys. This is like literally rewiring how you live your life. There's a big price ticket on it, but it is worth it. I've done it literally 3 times. The shit is legit. So go check that out. Absolutely. And that's about all for us right now. Can't wait to connect with more of you. I really appreciate we've had like a huge resurgence in downloads and stuff like that. Podcast picking up a lot of steam. So, I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. We're doing our best behind the scenes. Shout out to Rhea with the copy. Shout out to Raiden with the project management. Shout out to Juan with the editing. Shout out to Kevin with the organization, the overall leadership, the creative direction. Shout out to the whole team, man. Really. It's a big job to create a podcast, and I'm just super grateful, super appreciative of the team. So go hit them up, give them a follow, hit up Self Hired as always, and we appreciate you, the listener, the most out of everyone. So have a blessed week, and we'll talk to you soon.